So good afternoon or good morning, depending on where it is that you're watching this session. This is the April version of the Past Women in Technology virtual group. Our mantra is that we encourage, energize, and empower women who are involved in technology. If you have the career status and the wherewithal to be a mentor, I encourage you to do so. If you want to find a mentor, the Past WIT group would be more than happy to help you with that. All you have to do is ask. We know a lot of women who do this for a living. We are sponsored today by SentryOne, and they actually were our year-long sponsor. So before the end of the session today, I will pick a winner from the attendees to win a $50 Amazon gift card. So you'll be notified of that at the end of our session today. You can check us out on YouTube. All of our sessions are recorded and uploaded to our YouTube site. Check out our homepage, wit.sequelpass.org. Join the virtual chapter. You get our monthly newsletter. And follow us on Twitter at PastWit. Follow and use the PastWit hashtag as you find an article that you think might be interesting to other women in your field. Tweet it and use the PastWit hashtag. I follow it. If it's something you'd like to have included in the newsletter, send it to witbc@sequelpass.org. We'd love to have your input. So we have some upcoming events. As you guys know, we share when women speak in technology, regardless if it's for our virtual chapter or not. So Redmond is coming up, and they have 4 speakers. Mindy Kernet has been a speaker for the WIT virtual group before, I want to say in January of this year. And then Edmonton and Silicon Valley are coming up. Melody Zacharias did a session for us late last year. And SQL Saturday Israel, Costa Rica, and Rochester are coming up. I was very pleased. I spoke with the organizer of Rochester. They had no women submit to their event, none. And a member of the community reached out and said, no women submitted, so none are on the schedule. Can you help? And we said, absolutely, let's see what we can do. And also upcoming Baltimore and Kiev have female speakers. Upcoming webinars that you can register for at wit.sequelpass.org over the next couple of months. 2 in June, because one is sponsored by DBA Fundamentals and one is us. And Jess Borland's session is actually going to be a professional development session, so I'm excited to hear that. But today's session is Jen McCown. Is it McCown or McCone?
McCown.
Because I read it out loud one way, but then when I read it internally, I pronounce it. I don't know how that makes sense, but maybe it doesn't.
Yeah.
Effortless Backups with Minion Backup. She is the CEO of Minionware LLC. We're incredibly pleased to have her speak for us today. So I am going to let her explain more about what she's going to talk about today and do her bio, because I probably won't do it justice.
That's cool. All right. I've got to click on show my screen. Hold tight, everybody. I'm new to this technology stuff. Kidding.
Well,
okay. Hi, everybody.
Before she gets started, let me say, if you have any questions along the way, I'll be happy to find a break point for Jen, and we'll get your question answered, or depending on what the question is, we may hold it to the end, but we're not ignoring you. We'll get around to it. So you're good. Go ahead.
All right. Yeah, we'll reset. So hi, guys. This is Effortless Backups with Minion Backup, and I'm Jen McCown. And somewhere in here, there we go, I have a vanity slide. Yeah, I am one of the 2 Midnight DBAs starting here in the middle. Sean McCown and I are the only I mean, I don't know if he's not in the room right now, but I got to remember if we're the only married set of MCMs and MVPs, I don't remember what the whole thing is. But anyway, so we run midnightdba.com. That's free training videos. We also have our consulting company, Midnight SQL Consulting. And the big deal these days for us is Minionware LLC.
Jen,
we
I'm going to
created,
interrupt
yeah.
just really quickly. Can
Please.
you minimize the
Yeah, I was trying to figure out how.
That orange arrow in the top. There you go.
There we go. And I didn't know if it would show up. I didn't know if it was smart enough.
Sometimes it is. Sometimes it's not.
Oh, well. So Minionware is us. We make stuff for DBAs. We make software for you guys. I tell people effectively what happened is we spent years and years and years and decades being DBAs and got really angry with every third-party solution out there, and so we made our own. What we're going to talk about today and two other modules, Minion Backup and then Reindex and CheckDB, are free. You go to minionware.net, you download them, you run them all you want. We don't ask for your email or anything. It's all open SQL code, so you can do what you like with it, write your own alerts and reports and extra tables and whatever you like. The only thing you can't do it is slap your name on it and sell it. That's pretty much it. So that's more or less me and what I do, and actually that's mostly what I do. And I don't think we have much else of substance in this slide deck. Oh, there it goes. Managed to click on a link instead of clicking off of this. So yeah, you go out to minionware.net and you can get the solution that we're going to be toying around with today. So that's the extensive, intricate slide deck. I can make that available for you if anyone needs one. But no, we're going to be hanging out today in Management Studio because that's the fun stuff. All right, so what I want to say about Minion Backup, I really do mean it in terms of making our own tools. I think every DBA, if he or she is in the business long enough, gets aggravated and starts coding their own solutions for maintenance, for backup, for management, for all kinds of stuff. The difference is that when you are a DBA, they don't want you to spend 100% of your time all year long devoted to this beautiful, intricate automation system that you're developing. Now they want you to do other stuff like security and migrations and code reviews, whatever, right? The important work is right here. So we took the time, we got obsessed and self-funded and said, you know what, we're going to finish this that nobody ever gets to finish because they're expected to do other things. We already talked about where to get it. There's a newsletter. This code I will actually put online as well. Somebody should probably remind me. And we got our little agenda up here I'm not going to worry about right now. So yeah, Minion Backup is free. It is available. It integrates with our enterprise products, or we do sell it as an enterprise product too, but don't get the wrong idea. We wanted the full feature set available in the free version, and so it is. It's not like, oh, we do everything except certificate backups. No, certificate backups are in the free version too. All the cool stuff that we're really excited about, you get when you go and download it. Fully functional on its own. I used to know what that meant when I wrote it down, probably meaning it doesn't tie into anything else, and once you install and run it, it just goes. As we were coding it, our main tenets were, and this translates closely to the things that anger us most about other solutions. No extra jobs. Man, if I were in a room with all of you, I would ask you to raise your hands who here is sick to death of managing 8 different jobs just for backups, just for different backup schedules. And, oh, well, this particular database needs this extra thing. And, oh, well, this one has this slightly different configuration that I need, and so forth. We wanted as absolute few jobs as possible. So we got it down to 2. One to run the backups and one to watch the other one run the backups. We wanted to work out of the box. I often get people say, well, yeah, I'd like to get into that, but I'm a brand new DBA, and so, I can't handle anything complex. And it's like, well, we've deeply documented this, but B, it really is plug and play. You can let it grow, and all of the solutions that I'm going to show you today are optional. If you run into this problem, then you can solve it in this way, but you can just install the thing and let it go. And then there's a highly configurable for the people with specialized circumstances, for server certificates for high availability scenarios. You know, if you want to run backups on availability groups, then that presents a unique set of scenarios. But we'll go over all that. So first things first, how to install. We try to make this as simple as possible too. Download the thing and extract it. And I've got it all extracted out too. Wait, let's go ahead and copy that so I know the right place. There we go. I've got it all extracted out, and you'll see the Minion setup master script right there. So that's what I'm going to use to install. And it's just a PowerShell that runs a set of T-SQL scripts, honestly. So I'll go into PowerShell, change directory to where that's extracted. And all we need to do now is run that master with the name of the server that I'm installing it on, and .dot works just fine for the local server, the name of the database I'm going to install it on, and which module. We're just installing backup today, so I'll just put backup. Although I could, if I wanted to, also install reindex or checkdb or all three. So we roll this and we get the pretty little eyes staring at us and some cute text, and off it goes. Now, by the way, if you run into anything or if you just get curious, there is an install log folder, so you can go out and see the latest and see, you know, if there were any problems or just what it did. This one looks like it's finished just fine, which is awesome. So once we've got that, I have now installed Minion Backup to the MB demo database. What I need to do, there's really one thing that I need to set, well, technically two. Where are my backups going? So I got to set the backup drive and path. That one's really easy. I'm going to go ahead and run this and then show you just an update statement to this table. And there we go. I want it to go to the C drive, and I want it to go to the SQL Backups folder, and then we'll talk about what these things are in here. They're effectively little tokens that stand for something else. So when I run a backup, it'll go to C, SQL Backups, the name of my server, and then the name of the database as the folder. And of course, as with any backup solution, it absolutely needs to create these folders if they don't already exist, and Minion Backup does so. So that's taken up. From here on out, it's done. It's rolling. It's got a schedule it's going to run on. It's got its own settings. It's any database that you add, any database that you remove, of course, is automatically taken into account. You know, it's not going to bork because you dropped a database or because you added a new one. That gets included in the scenario. We can go and alter this to our heart's content, but we don't really have to if we don't want to. Brief note, you can also install to several servers at once if you want to. I need to blast this out to 5 different servers. Okay, sure, just put them up here and put a pipe between them. You're golden. All right, so let's take a look at this now that we're here. Configuration. I told you before that I absolutely despise managing multiple jobs for different schedules and for different configurations. Oh, well, this one's going to be a mirrored backup, and this one's going to have this run before it, and so forth and so on. That's aggravating. So we've put all of these settings, all of these configurations into tables, which, you know, we're DBAs. This is where data should go into tables. Configuration should go into tables. So let's take a look at our basic table here, Minion Backup settings. Most of what we want, a lot of what we want is in here. So it comes installed with a default row. When you see DB name Minion default, that means, oh, okay, this covers all databases. This is how we say if you add a new database or if you drop a database, then it's gonna be taken into account. It's already got settings for it. So all right, DB name is Minion default. Which backup type? Well, this particular row covers all backup types. We'll go over getting specific for each backup type later, but for now, we're just going to say all databases, all backup types. You can exclude databases from backups, and if we were to set exclude equal to 1 on this row, then we would exclude every database on the system from all backup types, which I suppose there's a scenario for wanting to install Minion Backup and then exclude everything. I haven't thought of it yet, but anyway, we'll talk about that more later. You can order your backups. You can say, okay, look, I've got, 60 different databases, but DB4 is the most important one. It's got to be done the fastest because there's some other process that relies on having that backup file. Well, okay, then, order it so that goes first. And I'll show you how to do that one in a minute. You've got two levels of ordering too. Your group order is, you can create a group, say number 10 is this high priority group, and just say, okay, well then we're going to call that group 10. And then group DB orders within that group. So it's nice and flexible. By the way, in Minion Backup, anytime you see order, that is a weighted backup. So higher the number, the bigger priority it has. So higher numbers go first. Mirror is just a flag to enable mirrored backups. If you have never heard of a mirrored backup before, that's perfectly fine. We'll demonstrate that as well. Delete file before and delete file before agree. So here's a problem solution pair for you. I have been in shops that have been so tight on space, and in the short term there was nothing that we could do about it. We actually had to delete the previous backup file before we could take a new backup. And if we were in the same room, that I would see a handful of you nodding at me. Yes, yes, a few of us know what that's like. As much as I don't like that practice, and I'm not fond of it, we don't tell you, we as Miniware don't tell you, oh, well, you can't do that. No, I've been in those shops. I know sometimes it has to be done. So you can enable delete file before, but you must also turn on delete file before agree, because this is serious business, right? Log location, if I remember rightly, that one's not super important except in two scenarios. And let's actually look up the help. Oh, did I mention that we put all of the help information inside the product? You can run minion.help with the name of the module and a topic and get back help on it. So we're looking for the log location column on the backup settings table. Let me embiggen this just a little bit. All right, search for log loc. There we go. Log loc determines whether the data is stored only on the local server or on the local and the repository server. That's right. So this one we're not really interested in, because for this example, for this demonstration today, we're not integrating this with Minion Enterprise, and so we're not going to have a repository server. So ignore this. But it was a good exercise to see the help, right? Where were we? We were going over settings. History retention in days. Anytime you have backup or maintenance, as a matter of fact, anytime you do almost anything with data, there should be a log, right? A log of what happened, a log of when it happened, and all the details around it. We have log tables in here, and anytime you log information, you should have it clean up after itself. Nobody wants 16 years worth of backup logs. It's just going to waste space and irritate people. So we say, okay, we've set history retention to 60 days worth of data. That sounds good for me. Obviously, you can change this for your own purposes. And notice, by the way, that since we can specify at the database and the backup type level, you could technically put a row in here for, I don't know, DB8 full backups and keep that history for 90 days or 120 or whatever you want. All of this stuff is, you can specify it at the database and the backup type level. Minion trigger path, we're not going to concern ourselves with today. Database pre-code and post-code. This is data that you would want to run before the database, before the backup runs for that specific database. Now, if you put pre-code on this row, it's going to run that pre-code before each and every database, because again, we're talking about all the databases on the server. Again, I don't have a scenario in mind where I would want to do that. I can think of running pre-code before or code before or after a specific database's backup, but just because I haven't thought of it doesn't mean that someone else won't. And we've had some really interesting solutions come out from people using Minion Backup, using database pre-code and post-code. We'll get to some examples again a little later. We got to push through all the settings just to see what we can do before we go start doing stuff. Push to Minion, not interested in that today. That's an enterprise thing. Dynamic tuning. Ooh, did you know you could tune backups? We're going to talk about that. That's fun stuff. Yeah, and I do mean tune backups, like make them faster. Verify whether or not you want to verify your backup. That's a SQL backup option, native SQL option. Preferred server. Now, let me look this one up again. This is if you're in an Active Directory, availability group. I'm sorry, I've been switching back and forth. Availability group scenario. You can set your preferred server and say, I should really grab this one instead. You could say null, that means the AG primary, or you can name a specific server so that no matter where you are in your availability group, backups happen on that particular server. And we were still looking through. There we go, there's preferred server. Shrink log on log backup. There's an entire talk to be had about whether or not shrinking files is a good idea, but again, very briefly, sometimes something happens to blow your log up way bigger than it should be, and do you want to get up and get out of bed and go take care of that at 4 in the morning, or do you want the system to take care of it automatically for you? Use shrink log on log backup wisely. Don't put a teeny tiny number where your log is having to shrink every single time it backs up. But there are absolutely scenarios where shrink log on log backup is useful. So you would enable it. You would say, okay, at what point is the log too big? You know, is it at 5 gigabytes, 50 gigabytes? And once it crosses that threshold, what should we shrink it down to? So if it's 50 gig, do I shrink it down to 20? If it's 5, do I shrink it down to 4? So what's the number here? And of course, that's going to vary wildly depending on your environment, the server, the database, the activity, and all that. A minimum size for differential. This one's just kind of a fun extra feature, because if in general your shop likes to have full log and differential backups, then great, but what if you've got some teeny tiny databases that don't really need differential backups? There's not that much activity going on. You can set a threshold that says, okay, if my database is under, I don't know, 5 gigabytes, then don't bother with taking a differential. Instead, I can do either a log or a full backup by placing that, by setting diff replace action. Log progress, I'm pretty sure we ignore that because we're going to log the progress of your backups anyway. File action and file action time. And here we're going to look these up again because this is just fun. File action with an L in it. There we go. File actions allows you to set whether you want to take a backup and copy it, take a backup and move it, or do both. So that's something that's been useful at a couple of different shops at least, because we want to take the backup, automatically copy it over here, and then restore it to the QA server or what have you. So your file action says whether you want to copy or move, and file action time says whether you want to do the copy or move immediately after that database's backup, or after the entire batch of backups has complete. So on Saturday night, your full backups run, and then after that, any copy or move that you configure happens. We've got an example of that too a little later. We're getting there. We're getting there. I know this is kind of a fire hose right here at the beginning. Encrypt, name, expire date. These are your standard SQL backup options, right? Checksum init format, all that jazz. And down to media and media name. So this is all pretty good stuff. Very common. And you'll notice in most of the, or actually all of the settings tables, we've got an is active flag and a comment. The is active obviously turns that row on or off. If is active is 0, the system completely ignores it. It's like it's not there. And comment is there. Well, we've got some, it's for your reference, the system doesn't really use it, but we've seen some interesting scenarios come up where people use that comment to help in conjunction with pre-code to like turn rows on or off, and we'll see an example of that too. All right, we got through all of backup settings. Let us press on and see some cool stuff. We're going to customize some things real quick. You would just say, all right, I'm going to update backup settings. I want the retention days at 90. I want to keep 90 days worth of history. I'm going to turn on verify. I'm going to turn on shrink log on log backup and all that jazz. So okay, yay, we've made some changes. There's that. There's a comment that we did. All right, no worries. So I said we could order backups. Let's go ahead and take a look at that first. We looked at the settings table. Now here's your primary store procedure, minion.backup master. If you go look at the backup job created in SQL Agent, all it does is run, just a second, that. I think it might have with, at debug equals 0, not 9. So it just runs that, which means since all of the parameters are null, when it runs, it's going to get all of its settings from the tables instead of getting it from you. I'm running demos here, though, so I'm going to go ahead and specify my parameters. I'm going to run backup master with database type equal user, backup type equal full. We're going to just generate the statements only instead of actually running it right now. I'm going to leave include and exclude as null. This means I want all databases, not just read-only, but read-only and read-write. And debug equals 0. So generating the backup statements, they're gonna generate in kind of any given order. Here it looks like it's mostly alphabetical. I think that's kind of a coincidence. I don't think there's any guaranteed order when you run this. But let's force an order. We're going to insert some rows for DB1, 2, and 3, and we're going to say, all right, I'm going to give it a group order. DB1 gets 10, 2 gets 9, 3 gets 8. That's not confusing at all, is it? Remember that order is weighted. So I want DB1 to go first, DB2 to go next, 3 to go next, and anything else goes after in any given order. Let's go ahead and run this again with statement only. So user full backups. Oh, look at that. DB1, 2, and 3 are right up there at the top. So when this runs for real, database 1 will be the first database backed up. Awesome. So here, let's go ahead and reset back to where we've just got the Minion default row in there. I like to clean up after each demo if I possibly can. So yeah, ordering backups, super duper easy. Now let's get on to excluding. Let's say for one particular database, for DB3, I don't ever want it to have a differential backup. So we insert a row into backup settings for DB3, backup type equals diff, and we're going to go ahead and set exclude equal to 1. So from now on, DB3 will never ever get differential backups. Awesome. That's exactly what I wanted. I realize the group order is still in there. It doesn't really matter in this case. It's excluded, so never mind. So real quick, let's talk about precedence. We've done something new here. We've inserted a row for a specific database. Well, now, officially, you might think, well, that's conflicting because Minion default means all databases. We've got a rule. We've got a couple of rules in Minion Backup. First things first, more specific trumps less specific. So it's for database 3, it's going to get all of its settings for database 3 differentials from this row, and it'll never refer back to the Minion default row for database 3 differentials. But here's the other thing. Once you set anything at the database level, you need all backup types covered. So what you're looking at here is actually not valid. It's not legitimate. I need to insert in another row or two to cover all the backup types. So let's go ahead and do that. There we go. Now I've got 3 different rows for DB3, one for diff, one for full, one for log. I could just as easily had said diff and all or diff and full and all. Doesn't matter. As long as all 3 of them are covered, it's fine. And remember, more specific trumps less specific. So DB3 diff would trump DB3 all, and both of those trump Minion default all when you're talking about database 3. All right, as long as that's clear as mud. So what were we doing? We were saying, well, I want to exclude differential backups for DB3. So now when I say I want to run user fulls, I will see a statement for DB3, but when I run user diffs, I will not see one for DB3. If it were in there, it would be right up at the top because you remember we have that, that ordering in there. See there? DB3 is always going to come first, but diff is excluded. Awesome again. Let's say for something like Minion test, I don't want that to ever have any backups for whatever reason, right? This is my office, and we all know that Minion test is just a junk database that we should never back up. So I say Minion test all exclude. There you go. You'll never see any backups on it ever again. It's a nice record too to have it in there, which is another reason why I really dislike log backup, which I really dislike managing multiple jobs for this kind of thing. Is I would have to dig through several jobs to figure out which ones are covered and which ones aren't, and which ones are excluded, and if they're excluded correctly, and so forth. This way, it's just at a glance. Oh, look at that! I don't ever want any backups for Minion test. Cool. Now when we run this, there we go, we don't see a minion test anywhere in here. By the way, as long as we're at it, remember I said that I'm using parameters just for demo purposes. Well, we also recognize that at any point in your life you might want to generate statements manually or run a backup manually, which is also why the parameters are here. So as long as they're here, you can exclude particular databases in a list, in a single, and with wildcards using the exclude parameter. So what I'm saying here is I'm going to take user full backups. I'm going to just generate the statements, but anything that begins with the letters DB or Minion, I don't want to see it. So when we run this, we'll say, oh, look at that. Nothing that starts with DB, nothing that starts with Minion. As much as possible, we make solutions, and this is a universal thing. This isn't just Minion Mirror. Sean and I try to make solutions with these kinds of things in mind, with expansive things in mind. Wouldn't it be great if I could just exclude a whole group of databases all at once? Because I mean, you know, how many places have you seen that has like test 1235 and test 1287 and test, and I don't want to mess with any of those, so it would just be test, right? All right, moving right along. We're going to reset, so we're back down to just our default level. Yay! We already talked about that. All right, what have we covered so far? We've talked about the install. We've talked about configuring settings and all the wonderful things that you can do in the settings, using the settings table and things represented by the settings table. What about paths? We touched on paths very briefly, but let's get back to it. If you wanted to get help on backup settings path, which is our settings table for paths, then you would run the help procedure. But let's go ahead and take a look at this. Cool, looks very similar so far. There's an ID column, ooh, DB name with Minion default, and over here, backup type all. Okay, so good. We've got another sort of default all-encompassing row in the settings path table. You'll notice something different immediately, of course. There's an is mirror. We can enable mirrored backups from settings. Here is where we'd configure it. We're going to have a demo on that, but we should always have a non-mirror path, a primary path for our backups. If you were just to come in here and set is mirror equal to 1, well, then it doesn't have a primary path to back up to, and it's going to bork on you. So be aware that you need a Minion default 0 all row. Backup location type is local. I think that's the one I was thinking of earlier, where it only matters in certain circumstances. Backup location type. Yep, this is the one. Most of the time it doesn't matter. If you put in local, if you put in NAS, that's mostly for your reference. But URL is actually quite important. URL says that, hang on a second, just information for you. URL says that I'm going to be backing up to our URL, and we've actually got Azure credentials later on in the row. And backing up to null, if you're not familiar with that, that means running a backup, so actually doing the reading aspect of it without writing to a disk. I know that sounds bizarre and you would never want to do that, but it's actually part of the backup tuning process for gathering information on your backup process. So generally speaking, your backup location type is going to be local, unless you are backing up to a URL, or for some reason you want to schedule backing up to null, which would be odd. All right, so here's our backup drive we're already familiar with. Here's our backup path. And I told you before that we would talk about these weird little things in here. Well, SQL backups, that's easy. It's clear that we're going to be backing up to C:/SQL backup / something. These guys here with the % signs on either side, we call them inline tokens. There's another table where there's a default set defined, including SOSL, which stands for server or server label, and DB name. And the system will replace those inline tokens with their meaning. So here, I'll go ahead and give you a little spoiler. We don't have a server label defined. More on that later. So it'll just plug in my server's name and the database name that we're currently backing up, and that will be the path. So in this case, it would be C, SQL Backup, HeroCon, Master, or what have you. And then the same thing here. The default file name is this funky looking thing, but it's a funky looking thing for a reason. What this will work out to is like one master full, and then with the date, the hour, and the minute, the second, which is a really nice put together file name for your backups. But yeah, those, anytime you see those weird little percent tags, that's an inline token that's predefined. We'll work with those just a little bit today. And then we've got our backup extension, so you'll get your .back. All right, server label. This is a really neat little thing that lets you, all right. So let's say that you've got a scenario where you're log shipping, right? You've got DB1 on server 1, and it's log shipping to server 2. When Minion Backup runs on server 1, most likely you'll be backing it up to something like this, where it's got the server name. So you'll be doing SQL backups, well, hopefully not C drives, but somewhere else. SQL backups, server 1, database name, right? But if we ever wind up having to fail over, and I realize fail over is a little colloquial when we're talking about log shipping, but if we ever make the log shipping database the primary, well then the path is going to be different. It's going to be, and here we'll just assume that it's a NAS drive, right? Whack something SQL backups, server 2 database name. Well, man, now I've got databases hanging out in different locations. Wouldn't it be great if I could direct them all to the same folder? Yeah, you totally can. We can define a server label and use that to refer to server 1 and server 2 in the backup path. So if I define a server label, it'll be whack whatever, SQL backups, my server label, master. So that no matter which node we're on, whether this is, by the way, log shipping, availability groups, or anything else, mirroring, all of my backups will be in the same folder. Love that. All right, so there's server label. How long do I want to retain this backup file? File action method and flags. Remember I noted that we could back up a file and then copy it somewhere else. This is where we would define what we're going to use and what flags. So like robocopy and what flags to use to do the copy or move. You can order your paths. Say if you're backing up to several different locations, you can say, okay, like copy it to here first and then copy it to the next and so forth. And then we've got our is active and comment as before, and the promised Azure credential in case you're backing up to URL. I'm kind of trying to fly through this because two reasons. One, we're always limited on time, and two, just staring at a table gets a little boring after a while. Let's do some stuff. All right, where are we? Let's insert some rows to backup path for a particular database. And notice that we're going to cover, for MB demo, we're going to cover all different types of backups. In this case, we've chosen to go all full and log instead of diff full and log. That's fine. That's fine. When it sees that it's MB demo and that it's not a full or a log backup, it'll go, okay, then I'll use these settings instead. So what I've done just to demonstrate is given them different locations to back up to. So let's go ahead and see that. When I run, we'll talk about this in a minute. If I were to run the backup statement, what I would get is backup database to C SQL backups MB demo full. That's for my full backups. If I were to run a log, it's going to give me that other path, which is awesome. I can determine which folder, which location I want to go to based on the database name, based on the backup type, anything I want. By the way, I introduced you to the backup master stored procedure earlier. Backup statement get is something that the system itself uses clearly to generate backup statements, but it's also nice for us as a little what if. So as I've just demonstrated, we just put 3 different options in for locations. So I say, okay, what if I run a full backup on this? Where's it going to go? Oh, I see. It's going to run to SQL MB demo full. Gotcha. And if I were to run it on this one, oh, it would do it to SQL MB demo log. All right, cool. So it's a nice little what if thing. This number at the end we'll get to later. All right. So we figured out how to configure paths for a database. Let's do something a little more interesting. I'm going to put in a path for MBDemo all and a different path for MBDemo all, and only one of them is active. The scenario I've got going in my head here is I've got a primary location, and when the database is on the primary location, I want it to go to here. I want the backups to go here. But if it happens to fail over to the DR site, maybe that backup location isn't available, or maybe it's not guaranteed to be available, right? Like if my primary site loses power, then I won't be able to get to here. Okay, fine. So if it fails over, I want it to back up to here. Well, how am I going to make that happen? Because right now I've just got 2 rows, one of which is inactive. Well, let's get back to pre-code. Before we saw database pre-code, we've also in another table got the ability to set, where'd it go? And I lost my, there we go. Oh, it's because I'm in the wrong table. There we go. I have the ability to set batch pre-code. So before the batch runs, do this. Well, I've got some flexibility here, right? I can check the server name, and if we're on the regular production server, I can make sure that the DR site row is inactive and that the primary row is active. But if it's not on the production server, I do the reverse. I activate the DR site path and deactivate the one that has the production path. I'm going to run this right now, and since we are not on production server, it went through and said, oh, I see. Since we're not on the production server, I'm going to go ahead and turn the DR site on and the production off. So now from now on, it's going to use this. But this check, I set this code as the pre-code. So every single time a backup runs, it runs this code first. Pretty cool stuff. This is just one example of how you can customize this thing almost any way you want to, because you get options here.
So I have
a
question? Question for you, Jen.
Sure.
When it's AG aware, is this something you could set to help control with log snaking, the way it goes back and forth between servers, or I say this because my company, we are currently struggling with how to make our databases more primary aware on the AG.
By log snaking, I've got a couple of different things going through my head here. So what is it that you mean by that?
Well, so when, if the primary goes back and forth, you know, the log moves from the primary and then it's over on the secondary because we failed over, so the log is coming from that one, then we fail back to the primary, and the log is
You're talking about the log of the backup activity, you mean?
Yes. Well, no, yeah, no, just a log, I'm sorry, a database log backup.
Oh, in terms of, you're saying in terms of where the file goes? Because again, I've got like 3 different scenarios in my head.
Right. So,
yeah, this is exactly, yeah.
We don't have it set up on a file share. It sets up to a spot on the SAN that is presented to the primary or the secondary or whatever.
Right. So let me say this. Let me go ahead and outline the whole thing, because that's one of the problems, but there are other problems as well. So if you've got an AG scenario with 3 nodes, and you're backing up on node 1, and then it fails over to node 2, well, first off, we've got that setting that says, yes, I want to back up on the primary node. Okay, great. That part's fine. But you're right in that if I've got Minion Backup installed on all 3 of those, now I'm potentially backing up to a different location. And the third thing that you've got going on is that the logging of this, you know, in our log tables, and the keeping track of the files is now going to be on different nodes depending. So you get 2 different things to fix this. One is the server label that I mentioned before. So like if you've got a NAS location, is that part of what you were talking about?
We currently
is where the backups go?
We currently
don't have a NAS location.
Right.
So in this particular case, what you would have is backup on a local D drive and then a backup on the other local D drive and so forth.
Essentially, yes.
Yeah, that one's kind of fun. And the problem that you're having is maintaining those or finding them? Because if you don't have a central location to back up to,
So
there's only so much we can do with that.
right. I don't want to drag you too off topic, but I'll say that
No, it's fine.
so
It's
right
a good
now,
conversation.
our problem is all of our backups are running fine. Everything's fine. And everything always is fine with backups until I need to recover them. And so my concern is that when we have an outage, if we've been doing maintenance and we've gone back and forth across from primary to secondary and then back over to the, or from node 1 to node 2 or whatever, back and forth in between our last full backup, that I'm going to have some trouble restoring. I'm going to have a level of complication that I don't need.
There's another two things going on. One, you could choose to automatically copy all of your backups to another location if you've got a share or something like that set up between them. So that's one thing if you just wanted them all in one place. But Sean actually mentioned that we've got backup and restore store procedures as part of this that I don't have a demo for today, but I'm sure he'd be willing to record you something that could help fix this. So in short, yeah, we've done a lot of thinking about AGs and these exact kinds of problems, and we sit down and hash out exactly what it is. It's a little unusual to have an AG like that, having the backups all go into local drives. So that's kind of throwing me for a loop on the spot.
I think we're on the storage that is on. The storage one is amazing. I won't drop the name of it. And we actually just have large amounts of storage presented as a drive to each one of the nodes. And it's on our list of things to do. We're worrying about it. And the reason I ask and bring it up is that it's something we didn't think about going into
absolutely.
This.
Yeah,
and
we can totally sit down and work with you on that. Yeah, he's saying the same thing I'm about to say is it would probably be ideal to set up a share. But again, that sounds like something pretty specific. So we can take that one offline and definitely sit down with you. I don't mind that at all. Good question though. But yeah, things get complicated once we get into high availability scenarios, especially. But getting off of that for a sec. All right, so I'm imagining that a couple of you guys have never heard of backup mirroring. It's actually a part of the native SQL backup command that you can say backup to disk equals mirror equals. You can back up the two locations at once. And we've provided for that in here. I'll go ahead and give my standard disclaimer. There we go. You can enable mirroring in the settings table, just turn it on. We still have to configure it, but it's on right now. I'm not a big fan, just because if you're backing up to two locations and something goes wrong with one of them, that borks the other backup too. I prefer to back up and then do a copy, but that's just me. And again, we don't want to tell you guys how to work. We want to provide options. So, okay. For MB demo specifically, we're going to set up a primary location, can't stress enough the need for a primary location, and a mirror location. My primary location, I've said, is SQL Backups All, and my mirror is SQL Backups Mirror. I'm on a laptop, so I've only got the one drive right now. If we go ahead and run this, and notice I'm not, actually, let's get the statement, then we'll get two rows, one for the one path and one for the other path. And then if we go ahead and, normally I would run this and then show you. I'm not going to do that today. I'm sure you have faith that this works, because I want to get onto server labels, one of the things we were talking about before. Let's go ahead, before server label, whoops, there we go. Stop. I hate it when it does that. Okay, it looks like we're just going to have to put up with this. That's awesome. Please hold. Okay, we are putting up with this. So we have put a server label in backup path. Really? What are you doing to me? Pardon me, folks. My SSMS is frozen up.
Type something in search and see if it'll go away.
I tried that.
If not, you're going to have to bounce SMS.
Yeah, I'm afraid I'm going to have to stop and restart SSMS because it doesn't like me anymore. In the meantime, do we have any questions? Everyone having a thoroughly good time, enjoying your lunch?
I sent for takeout. Does that count?
Yeah, that counts. What'd you get? What will you?
Also, the other directors went to lunch, and I'm doing a webinar today. So
Hey.
I sent them a text message and said, bring me back a blackened salmon Caesar salad.
That's
So,
nice. I don't know what we're doing for lunch today.
I'm sure it'll involve some kind of whole wheat cinnamon bread.
Yeah, you've been following him on Twitter, huh?
I have, yeah, that's probably like the liquid in it is the salt of orphan tears. Or I don't know.
No, it's actually not really.
Orphan tears.
I swear we're not really using any special ingredients. We've got like whole wheat and raisins, and it turns out amazing. But we're filming that today, by the way.
So it seems complex to me because I don't bake.
Ah, gotcha.
Period. Like I can't. I try, even like using brownie mix, there's a 50-50 shot it's going in the trash.
Oh, no.
I can braise and I can roast and I can grill and I can smoke and I can do those things, but somehow bread, cookie, cake family, I'm lacking something.
Huh. What a shame. You should cultivate that skill in someone else in your household.
So, my daughter can bake cakes. That's as far as we've gotten so far. So I have a quick question.
Perfect.
So how would you set up a copy-only backup in addition to the regularly scheduled full?
Excellent question. Let me get through server labels. We'll skip thresholds for a minute and go straight to schedules. Remind me of that in just a minute, okay? So we are back to, thank goodness, where we're supposed to be. We have set up a server label. Yay! Let's actually, I'm trying to take a look at there we go. So over here for server label for MB demo, I've said, whoa, server label. And notice in my path, I've got C, SQL Backups All, SOSL. Remember, that's server or server label, meaning if server label's null, just use the server name. But if we've got a server label, let's use that instead. So when we run this, and I messed that up when we were struggling before, there we go. So when we run this, we get the path C, SQL Backups All, whoa, server label, C, SQL Backups Mirror, whoa, server label. And this is where, again, within an AG scenario, in a normal AG scenario where you've got a NAS or something, that can come in handy because you can set your server label, and then no matter what node it's on, it'll go to that NAS location, SQL Backup / my AG name or what have you. So that's good stuff. We already did that. We're not going to run that right now. And I said that we would skip thresholds for right now. We really need to come back to it, but we may need to stay late, those of us who are dying for it. And here's my copy. So in backup settings, we say file action equal copy, file action time equal after batch. Again, this is enabling the copy and saying when we should do it. There we go. So for Minion default all, so for all of our databases, if we set up a copy location, then it'll do it after batch. So that's enabling it. So we set our paths and then say, we're going to set up a copy path for all of my backups, right, or all of my databases. So now what this says is every time we take any kind of backup, we will also have a copy operation that copies it to this location. And read me the exact question again, because I'm only remembering half of it.
Okay. How would you set up a copy-only backup in addition to the regularly scheduled full?
Oh yeah, okay, that's further down. But in the meantime, we'll finish this demo and skip on ahead again. In the meantime, we'll run backup master user fulls, and we'll just do it for MB demo, and it will have these settings take place. So it's going to run the actual backup, and then it's going to run the copy. Let's go ahead and see. All right, so where did I say that was going to go? That was going to go to C SQL Backups and C SQL Backups Minion default copy. So here's SQL Backups, and here is I believe, if I've got my, here, let's sort this by date. 11:55 a.m. Yep, there's the one that I just took. And then if we go to the copy one, we'll see, there we go. That's not it. Where is it? Minion default copy one SOSL. So somewhere in there I am missing the right location to go and find it. I'm probably reading it wrong. But you will have your backup and you will have your copy. And I guarantee you I have done something wrong here to mess it up. And we are running short on time, so moving right ahead. We already did that. We already did that. I'm going to take away the copy stuff and get down to schedules. We're skipping certificate backups for this, guys. Certificate backups. That's okay. We'll come back to it. Let's find schedule. There we go. So here we have yet another settings table, settings server. Now, why on earth didn't we call this schedule? Well, strictly speaking, it's not just a schedule table. As I hinted at before, we've also got the batch pre-code and post-code in here and a couple of other settings that aren't necessarily just schedule. But if we were going to, what we've got is we say, okay, system full backups happen on a daily basis, and you've got several options here that we could look up the whole range, because we've got daily, each weekday, you know, all weekdays, weekends, and then there's like first of month, last of month, that kind of thing. I think there's also first of year, last of year. So we say, I want my system full backups to happen every single day between 10 and 10:30 p.m. We give a nice big window because with normal scheduling, if your agent happens to be off or if something's hung up or if you miss the time for any reason, then you're just screwed. In this case, we could define a nice wide window and say, oh, okay, well, it'll try at 10 o'clock. And if that doesn't happen, then, you know, we'll keep trying within the window until we actually make a run. We say max for this time frame. Well, full backups, I just want it to happen once in this window. Log backups, which are going to run all day long. Yeah, lots and lots and lots and lots. Take lots of log backups, not just one. Going back up to our system full backups, this hasn't run yet, but when it runs, it'll say, oh, we've done one backup for this day in this window, and then the next day it'll be set back to 0. Frequency in minutes allows us to say, let's say we want to run our log, let's say we want to run our backup job every 5 minutes, but we really only want log backups to happen every 30 minutes. Well, we can configure that here, just say 30, right? And then it'll retry again and again and again and again, but it waits for 30 minutes until it gets to the next log backup. Sync settings, sync log. And I'm thinking about your specific question, that copy-only question.
So John says to run a copy-only in addition to a regular backup, you just put another backup in the schedule table. And the batch pre-code you'd set to set the copy-only flag. He says it's really easy.
Yeah, I was on that way, but it's better if he writes that out, because I'll sit here and think about it for too long, and then it'll be dead air, and then people get bored. So yeah, he's right. We've got like a user full Saturday at 11 p.m. We can set up another schedule that has pre and post code that says, okay, we'll run this on Saturday at 8 p.m. instead, and in that batch pre-code, it'll flick that copy only bit in settings server on, and then afterwards set it back off again. Where did copy only go? There it is again.
So I will say that particular feature, and I'm glad, I think the name was Andrea, I don't remember, I typed it a second ago, asked that question. That helps for those situations where you need that copy only backup because you're testing your backup or you want to restore a copy of your database somewhere to do your integrity checks on it. To just be able to automate that.
Oh, wow. Integrity check restores is a whole other entire session, and you should totally stick around, and we've got so much to say on that, and I can't get sidetracked right now, but yeah, you comment, no, it's fine, but totally talk to us some more. Sean, type in chat whether or not we have a video out on that yet. And in the meantime, there's one other thing that I absolutely love about the schedule table. This is the default schedule that comes installed, and you'll notice there's an include column. So yes, you can absolutely set up schedules for specific databases, specific lists of databases, wildcards, the whole nine. We've also got one called missing. Missing is a special Minion keyword, and here's how it goes. Let's say user diffs run on Sunday. I don't know why we have user diff Sunday and then user, oh, there we go, because we've got user diff weekday. I want user diff daily to run and check the last user diff backup. If any of those backups failed, in other words, if any of them are missing, this schedule will rerun it. I have a job for which this is absolutely critical because they have intermittent network failures. And the backup job will run at 2 a.m. and like 3 of the backups fail every other week or so. Well, I've just got a missing schedule that runs, 2-3 hours after that, and it comes through and it picks up those particular databases that didn't get backed up. When this is installed, the missing row is disabled. Just turn it on and schedule it at will. Now I do want to jump back up. Are we basically at time?
We are at time. You can, if you feel free to, if people need to go, they can drop off, or people can stay if you want to go over by a few minutes. I don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're going to go over a little bit because we wound up talking a lot and then skipping over a fair amount. I did want to get back to thresholds because I promised you we'd talk about tuning backups. Sean's got an entire couple of talks on this. But one of the key arguments I hear is I don't really care how long it takes to back up my database because it's not my time anyway. Well, I get that, and normally I'd get your back, but the amount of time it takes to back up your database, it's probably going to take about that amount of time to restore it too, and you don't want to take 4 hours in an emergency to restore a database. So tuning your backups is actually fairly mission critical for everyone. And again, Sean has an entire, out on Midnight.dba under events, Sean has a recording of his backup tuning session that I encourage everybody to go and see. But in the meantime, we'll just go over a couple of basics in the backup tuning thresholds table. And again, we've got our Minion default all. We determine the size of the database that we're looking at, in this case by data and index. There are 1 or 2 other options, but data and index is actually pretty reasonable. So I say when any database is 0 gigabytes or above, it gets 1 backup file, and I'm not really specifying buffer count, max transfer size, or block size. These 5 guys right here are your tuning settings. How many files are you striping to? What's the buffer count and transfer size? What's the block size? And are you using compression or not? There's a little more to this table I'm not going to get into right now, but this is the key. So what we're going to do today is say, for Minion default, for all backups, I'm going to add some more thresholds. So when a database hits 20 gigabytes, then it's automatically going to get 4 files, and I'm going to specify the buffer count and max transfer size. And yes, I'm going to use compression. When it hits 50 gigabytes, it'll get another bunch of settings. And that's why we call this dynamic tuning, because as your databases grow, they get the new set of tuning settings that you've provided. Now, coming up with these settings, yeah, you're going to need the session for that. This is just showing you how it's implemented automatically in Minion Backup. But all right, so let's say that we've got a database that's 125 gigabytes. It should get 10 files, right? So here's where backup statement comes into place again as a kind of a way to test things. Before we were saying, what paths would I see if I did an MB demo full backup? This last number here is the size of the database. Now, when backup statement get is used by Minion Backup itself, of course it plugs in the real number, but we have the option when we're using it here manually to plug in a what if number. And I'm saying, what if it were 125? We should get those 10 files. Now, what on earth has happened here that I got 20 rows back instead of 10? It's kind of a trick question, and I'll shorten this way down. The answer to the trick question is we left our mirrored path on, so that when this backs up, Let me see, where is this demonstrated? It'll back up to primary and back up to the mirror location. Now, I'm not finding where that is. There we go. Here it is, finally. So we've got our primary path, and then we've got our mirror path. So, of course, it's giving 10 files to the backup going to the primary location, like it should, and 10 files going to the mirror location, like it should. Let's turn off mirroring so that we don't get that anymore. Let's remove the confusion. There we go. Back to just pure tuning. There we go. 10 rows, 10 files, and they are named 1 of 1 MB demo full with the date, 2 of 10, and so forth and so on. I say 1 of 1, and I 1 of 10. So yeah, if we have MB demo full 150, it gets, we specified 15 files. So this works out really well. You can, of course, also specify at the database level, say for MB demo specifically, all, then at 0, I want it to have 1 file, at 20, I want it to have 2 files, and so forth. You can do a separate set of settings for an individual database, or even for an individual database and backup type. But I must emphasize that anytime you specify anything here, it's got to have a 0 row, right? Especially Minion default. If you don't put in a 0 row, then anything under 20 gigabytes, it has no settings, and so yeah, you're going to be unhappy with that. Always specify a 0 row in your thresholds. All right, so we've made them faster, we've scheduled them, we've done copy and move. I'm going to do one more thing and then let everybody go, because this one is big fun. There we go. Certificate backups. Certificates are precious and important and vital and get ignored in almost every shop I've ever been in. We've got a backup cert table in which we can define, say, all right, for server certificates, this is my encrypted password. Notice I inserted a real password and then encrypted it. And do I want to back those up? Yes, yes, I do. So I have just configured the first part of it. Now I need to configure where they're going to get backed up to. So again, we get back to our settings path table and say, all right, for all databases, doesn't really matter, a server certificate is going to be associated with master database, but just put it in Minion default. I've got backup type server cert, and I want it to go to this location. So now anytime master backs up, that certificate will back up along with it. Wait for it. There we go. And I want to jump down here and take a look at our backup files. That's one of our logs, and say, looks like we've got backup complete for master. And it should have shown up. That was a statement. That was not a statement only. That was a system full. And Minion default server cert is enabled. All right, well, I've done something wonky. I've got here that we're going to add a second location, and I'm going to add a location that doesn't exist, right? I've got to add a location that's going to mess up. When this fails, it's not going to fail your entire backup, because server certificates are important, but they're not, they shouldn't fail everything. Actually, this one might actually work. That backed up everything. There we go. So when you get a certificate failure, it doesn't actually break your entire backup. The master database should go ahead and back up, and we should get a warning saying, oh, by the way, we had a certificate backup problem because you didn't have a location set for it, or something. There are ways you can force it to fail if you really want to, but by and large, we really want our system backups to complete when they could. So, all right, that's kind of, we skipped around a little bit today, slightly more than I like, but we had some good questions, and so I think in the end it bounces out. You've got tons of documentation inside the product and on minionware.net. You can go straight to, oh, come on. It's a website. I know I did that right. All right, fine, something's interfering with it. So go to minionware.net, and you've got training, and that'll get you the videos, and you've got the individual product pages, which will get you the documentation and the downloads themselves. I will hang out after the recording has ended to answer questions and to point people to things, but in the meantime, thank you very much for coming out. I appreciate it.
So thank you very much for doing this today, Jen. Let me remind everybody that's still on the webinar that this session was recorded, so if there's anything that you think you didn't quite catch or whatever, don't worry about it. You'll be able to watch the recording later, and of course everything's fully documented, and you'll be able to find it at their site for what exactly it is that you want. And let me see if I have any questions for you, Jen. Someone says the website came up just fine for me. I'm not going to...
Oh, good. Yeah, see, I knew something was interfering on my side, but I'm not going to jack with it too much.
Sean said that.
Sean's not interfering with me. Oh, okay. Yeah, no, there's something on my computer, I think, and it's like, I don't know what, because I don't have a VPN on.
So, does anybody that's that here have any questions for Jen? Nope, nothing is popping up so far.
Post-lunch nap time, I think.
I think, well, if they're in a different, if they're in your time zone, they've decided now is the time to head out, I think.
That's quite all right.
So we have one question. And this is probably one that you guys get pretty frequently. I know a lot of people use OLA scripts to do backups and index maintenance and all that stuff. So how does this compare with that?
Right. We've got, I had long been a proponent of Ola Hallengren scripts before we wound up writing Minion. And I hate to say something as silly as I'm a convert because, you know, I'm part of this, but they compare really, really well because we have a whole bunch of things that he doesn't include. When I talk about having to futz around with different jobs, I am largely talking about Ola's scripts. Ola's also got a lot of stuff that bothers me, like for his reindex module, he gets some of the statistics and then puts them in XML, which makes me absolutely crazy. So a lot of things like that, plus we've put so much into our solution in terms of like looking at the backup tuning, the server certificates, the database, all certificate backups, having an AG aware. We didn't even get to talk about the data waiter, which really helps you out when you've got a high availability scenario and it passes around the logs and the data. His doesn't scale nearly as well as ours does, and on and on and on. That's a big question, and I could turn it into another hour. But yeah, we're big fans of ours because this is the tool that we always wanted. And if something makes us mad about it, then we fix it so that it doesn't do that anymore.
Awesome. Okay, so I don't see any more questions here. Again, thank you very much for taking care of this. Those of you who registered should get an email, a follow-up email that lets you know when the recording is available. And of course, if you follow us on Twitter, I'll have that link up later today, and I'm sure Jen and Sean in the Midnight DBA account will probably share some information as well. So
Sure
thanks again. Go enjoy your lunch, whatever it is you guys decide to have. And I'm going to go check to see if my salad ever got here.
All right, good luck. Thanks for coming, everybody.
Thanks. Bye.